Well, look who's here from Fox Sports and The Athletic. We all know it. It's Wednesday, so good to see Bruce Feldman back here. They're not saying boo. Bruce. They're saying Bruce. Where are you going this week?
Your favorite town. I'm going to Columbus, Ohio.
Hey.
Of course.
You should just get an Airbnb there.
Flop house, Bruce.
Like an FS1 flop house.
We're going to be there 3 times. I think we're definitely going to be there for the Michigan game. We're definitely going to be there this week, and I think there's a good chance we're going to see the Indiana Hoosiers visit.
No
there.
question.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we were going to have Coach Cignetti on yesterday, but Indiana called up and said, "Can we do it another week?" Because game day chose Bloomington, and it just threw off their entire schedule. And I'm like, I get it. Go enjoy that.
It is one of the best stories in college football. They are so good right now. We had them last week. We were in Bloomington. They blew out Nebraska.
Blew them out. I mean,
blew them off the field. And Nebraska has a good defensive coordinator. They looked overmatched. Even when Curtis Rourke, their starting quarterback, his thumb got hurt, the backup quarterback went in and played well. The run game's really good. They're really good on defense. They're a really well-coached team. And talking to guys, spending some time with some of the guys on staff, they're like, he's all ball. Like, there's a lot of times where coaches the head coach is maybe got his hands on a lot of other stuff. He just wants to coach ball. And in this day and age, it's a hard balance to do that.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, Chip Kelly said
that's exactly what I was saying.
That's all he wanted to do. And that's what he basically said as he was leaving UCLA, saying, he essentially said, I'm willing to give up the head coaching role because of all the other stuff that goes along with it to go to be the offensive coordinator. Back here on the Rich Eisen Show radio network with Bruce Feldman, we were just talking about Indiana and Coach Cignetti and what they're doing right now. So what can you tell me about Coach Cignetti? I mean, other than Googling him as he invited everyone to do, like, what can you tell us about him?
Guys I talked to and I know pretty well on that staff just say he's like the all-ball football coach. And in this day and age, that's hard to pull off. As we were talking about a minute ago, Chip Kelly came out here and at UCLA and could do that for a while. But I think some of the challenges with NIL, especially at UCLA, there's definitely the buy-in. I mean, our crew for Big Noon was there last week for Nebraska. It was a sellout. It was a great atmosphere. I think they are, obviously they would love to go to the playoff, and I think they have actually a decent shot to do it this year. But if you're 8-4 at Nebraska, at Indiana, you're 9-3. That is really heady stuff. You're that way at UCLA. It's not USC, but it's just a different animal. But at Indiana, it's this forever basketball state, and I think. He worked the portal so well because he got 13 or 14 of his guys who were with him at James Madison, really good players, really smart players. He took a really good quarterback from the MAC and Curtis Rourke. He got a bunch of other guys from Wake Forest and Old Dominion who are good players. And I think he has a very smart system. His defense coordinator and offensive coordinator came with him from JMU. Those guys are good coaches. By the way, the offensive coordinator's name is Mike Shanahan. He's obviously not that Mike Shanahan. But,
I love it.
But he's going to be a guy you're going to hear more about, this version of Shanahan. And Bryant Haynes is a good defensive coordinator who's a rising star. And Cignetti is 63 but feels like he's 43. And he's got an edge to him, and it fits. And I think he's just right now in this kind of sweet spot of he's with a lot of confidence. There's a little bit of swagger to him where it feels a little pro wrestling-like in terms of it's calculated, some of the things he's saying, how he's saying them, not just for the fans, not just for the media, but I think for a program that has, it's been forever since they won more than 8 games in a season, that they need somebody who has total belief that we're going to kick the other teams behind. And he's not shy about telling people that he's going to do it.
Because he's doing it. That helps, by the way, to walk it, too. I mean, that's a couple of times you've mentioned how they haven't won 8 games in a while, 8-4, 9-3. Hard to see the multiple losses, right now. They're taking on Washington. Is Rourke going to be okay, or he's not?
Yeah, I mean, Rourke may miss this weekend, but had a procedure where they think he's going to be back, at the least, probably in 2 weeks. And the guy behind him, Taven Jackson, is really talented. His brother's an NBA player. He was at Tennessee, very well thought of recruit. He was actually one of the guys that Cignetti inherited. He's talented. Like, I think he'll do well in this system too. And in some way, it kind of bodes. I think it bodes well because they should handle this, this next game. And then all of a sudden, when Curtis Rourke, who's very experienced, quarterback from the MAC, when he moves on, and all of a sudden, I think you have a guy who's now got his feet settled in the system.
Well, I mean, and again, it's hard to ascribe wins to teams that aren't, used to just saying, "Oh, you're better than them. You're gonna perform better, and we should expect it." I mean, Indiana's at Michigan State. They should win that game.
They should. Michigan State, Jonathan Smith's got him going. He's got a talented quarterback.
Right.
The defense is solid. So that's not a gimme game.
Well, and then they have Michigan in their house. They honestly, I'm straight up right now. I know you said you got to go to the dentist later on. I know how that feels.
A scuffle to try to get to 7-5 at this point.
Michigan?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm with you. And then they're at the Horseshoe. Oh my word! That after a bye, so they got a bye before they go to the Horseshoe, and then they got Purdue.
Purdue stinks.
Look at us talking Indiana football, like legitimate, because you've got Oregon, which is number 1 in the country now. You got Ohio State, Penn State. Well, Indiana's number 4 in the Big Ten right now. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I mean, look, they're not that because obviously Ohio State has a conference loss. People forget that, but it was Oregon's in the league.
I guess in terms of just expected how long they can go further. You never know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Indiana, man, this could be a situation where the committee, that's for down the road with the committee. But anyway, Indiana's doing very well. That's great for them. Oregon is worthy of the number 1 overall selection.
Yeah, they have a really good win over Ohio State. I think a lot of credit to Dan Lanning and that staff. The offensive line has come a long way from the beginning of the year. I think Dylan Gabriel's looked against the Buckeyes kind of what I thought he was going to be the Heisman guy this year, and there's still a lot to be done, but they did a good enough job on defense as well. Like Georgia looked like what we expected Georgia to look like in the beginning of the year, and they did look like that against Clemson, but after that they were kind of stubbing their toe and kind of shuffling around in the dark, and now they went into Texas, and it helped to get Michael Williams back. He will probably be a top 15 pick. He hurt his ankle against Clemson. He was on a pitch count, and it was a low pitch count. He was not playing much. And then I'd heard last week, man, he looks like he's back close to 100%. He was dominant. Jalen Walker, I talked to Jim Nagy a bunch from the Senior Bowl, and Jalen Walker's name came up a lot. We did our preseason call. He was phenomenal in the first half of the game. Quinn Ewers looked really rattled in the first half. The offensive line at Texas, which is good, got manhandled at times and overwhelmed. And again, it wasn't like, Beck looked great in this game. He threw some picks. But again, I think Georgia's defense looked like the Georgia defense in Michigan played a few years ago in the playoff. Like, they got after them. Now, is that Georgia are they gonna look like that the rest of the way? Because you have a bunch of 6-1 teams in the SEC, and I feel like Georgia and Texas, I'm buying. Tennessee had a nice win over Alabama, but Tennessee's offense is still they run the ball well, but their passing game is shaky, to say the least.
Right.
And then you're looking at it going, all right, I think LSU's playing pretty good, but that's a team that USC beat. I don't think they're up there with Georgia and Texas, but they're getting better on defense.
So yeah, I'm looking at the schedule the rest of the way here. It's great. I mean, 3 Big Ten teams in the top 4. It's kind of, again, it's going to take a while for me to say Oregon and Big Ten team, but they are. Penn State plays Ohio State the first Saturday of November. And
it's at Penn State, which is not an easy place to play.
Right, but Penn State does not play Oregon, which Ohio State did. So that'll be something that if Penn State does not play Oregon for the Big Ten championship, something for the committee to have to weigh. And I'm kind of already trying to figure out what issues the committee may have facing them, but there's still 12 teams. That's for down the road. Are we in a spot now? Bruce Feldman here from the Fox Sports and the Athletic on the Rich Eisen Show. Are we in a spot right now where, and in the day and age with the playoffs meaning everything, that kids who have NFL draft grades on them of significance are going to start thinking about not playing anymore?
In a playoff game?
No.
Oh.
if the team's not making the playoffs.
Yeah, I can
that
see
right
that.
now in the 12, again, we're getting further and further away of the importance of, if you will, bowl games, with all due respect to those who wear those loud jackets. And the bowls mean a lot to communities. But are we in that spot now where some players are going to start thinking about being done for the year?
I think so. There's two points to this. The first point is, I know of a story last year that I think is well known in scouting circles of a skill position player who was pretty well regarded in the draft, decided to come back and play in the bowl game, got hurt, couldn't leave because he was still would have been in recovery mode for the draft process. So he had to come back for this year.
Right.
So that story, I'm sure, gets around because I know it, so I'm sure it's around. The other part, and I don't know how this affects it because I think it's different in different cases, but now you have guys with NIL contracts. Is there a case where they may not get everything that's committed to them if they don't play in the bowl game? Is that obligation not going to be considered met? I don't know, because a lot of the times the NIL deals are really about what you do social media wise. Do you visit these high schools? Do you visit, X, Y, and Z? It's not necessarily about whether you played in a X amount of games, but I don't know how some of the contracts are written and what the levers are that may prohibit that.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is, well, first of all, obviously I have my own football program that I'm worried about right now, and there's some big-time players on it. I'm wondering if we're going to start seeing big-time players and programs that are already here towards the beginning of November
make business decisions. Certainly, since we saw a rash in early October of players saying, I'm redshirting because I'm already looking down the road and I'm seeing we're not going to get playing time here, and I'm redshirting. I'm just going to stop playing this year. And I'm wondering if this might actually lead to more programs having players sit because they're already looking at the combine. Yeah, and I think that will absolutely happen, because I think it happens, and sometimes it doesn't really get out where, this person has shut it down, or maybe there's an injury and the injury is a season ending where, maybe they could have played on it or not. I think those things are hard calls because, again, the story I heard this summer was of a player who's not a first or second round guy, but he's probably a mid-round player, but he had to come back and because he got injured in a bowl game, and the bowl game would fit in the category of it wouldn't, this was not, a team that was going to play in a playoff game.
Right.
And there are injuries. That's part of the game, and I don't think the player knew, from my understanding, that he was, his stock was what it was,
right,
or he was of value until after the fact. I've
got Bruce Feldman from the Athletic and Fox Sports here on the Rich Eisen Show. Yeah, man. I mean, there's ton. I mean, there's a 7-0 team, and BYU at 11. Army is 7-0.
Iowa State's still undefeated.
Right. I mean, and these are some teams that are got to be sitting here thinking they got serious chances to make the playoffs.
Well, how about this? Every year Notre Dame has this kind of funky schedule in that, obviously USC's on it always, but there'll be a team, sometimes they play Pitt, and this year Pitt's really good. Sometimes Pitt's not really good. It's who's going to be that really good team? Well, what's fascinating is, Navy has been down for the last 5 years. Ken Niumatalolo had it rolling for a while, and then all of a sudden it started to get sideways. This year, they're really good. Both Army and Navy are undefeated, as we said, I think last week, first time in 80 years that they're.
I think it's now longer now that they've every single week that they win.
Extends, right?
Extends, I think, to the 20s now. We're in a century now.
This is a big game, for Notre Dame Navy. Notre Dame's still very good on defense. They're Ben Morrison, who's a really good cornerback. He's out for the rest of the year now. The cornerback's probably a bigger, you would think is a bigger headache to have if you're playing Lincoln Riley's team than an academy team, but you still have to tackle on the edges and the perimeter. And Navy throws the ball better now than most academy teams typically do because they're doing some different stuff schematically. This is a big game. And if Notre Dame wins, we looked at that schedule because, again, coming into the year, they had Florida State on there. Florida State was a team that almost made the playoff last year. Now they're a team that may go 2-10. That, beating Florida State is not going to carry any weight for the Irish. Beating Navy, though, And beating Army will. I mean, those wins will actually probably matter more, may mean a lot more than beating Florida State and USC.
So how does this work now? For let's just front load it now that we're heading into the end of October and the beginning of November. Are we going to start seeing like weekly shows with, college football playoff rankings just like before, all the way down to 13 through 15 and stuff like that?
You will. And in fact, not to plug our old former network, but I was waiting for the NBA to start last night. It was opening night, and I forgot that it was on TNT, and I turned on ESPN, and they went right into I don't call it a faux rating show, but it was kind of off the AP ratings. And, I cover college football, so I like those discussions. There's a lot of people I'm friends with who are sitting at the desk of ESPN, and it's a good exercise, right? I don't know what the ratings are of a show where those rankings aren't real yet, but they will be soon. I think again, it's a good exercise for fans because it's the first time you're like, wait a minute, that team is number 11 in the actual ratings. The rankings, but now they're a number 3 seed or they're a number 4 seed because they're the champions, going to projected champions of the ACC or projected champions of the Big 12. Okay, now they're I think it's again, a lot of fans and a lot of honestly media are still getting used to how this is going to work.
Yeah, the 5-12 for me is always going to be fascinating.
It's going to be great.
Because the 5 is going to be that team that had a terrific season, designs on being the champions of their conference, but they're not, right? You're pretty much, or we will have
you probably lost your conference championship.
You probably lost your conference championship game, right?
Phew.
And to be the 5, you're on campus, and there's some 12. What if it's Indiana? You know what I mean? What if it's Indiana
Or BYU or Notre Dame,
right? Coming into the house of the, conference champion. It could even be Georgia. What if Texas goes and
good luck if you're Boise State then. Then it's an interest, for me, if somehow let's say Georgia loses the SEC title game and they're the 5 seed.
Yeah.
Let's say Boise State, which has a big game this weekend at UNLV in the Mountain West, but I think there'll probably be some version of a rematch in the Mountain West. But if let's say it's Boise State, you have the runaway best running back in college football and maybe the Heisman winner in Ashton Genty. And now he's going to be running against the Georgia defense, and NFL scouts are already on board, talking to personnel directors, a month ago, they love Genty, but still, I would love to see that matchup. I mean, good luck to him because it feels like he's going to be running 1 on 15, but
I guess get used to it potentially because that could be his immediate future in the National Football League. So before I let you go, you just mentioned you're talking to scouts. Who are they bullish on so far?
Yeah, scouts really love Genty. I mean, he's a great all-around back. He breaks tackles, his balance, as we said a couple weeks ago, got some MJD in him. I think the quarterback situation is super interesting, right? Because Carson Beck has been up and down. He was a guy I thought would have been the first quarterback taken. Ewers got off to a fast start, got injured, then looked rusty 2 weeks ago against Oklahoma, and then struggled against a really good Georgia defense last week.
Which is as close to an NFL defense as you're going to probably see right now.
Shador has played well. I mean, I think Shador, I feel like, is solidifying himself as a first-round quarterback. I don't know beyond that. And then you have Cam Ward is on a rocket ship with this Miami offense where they're putting up huge numbers. The schedule hadn't been great, but we'll see where it goes. And then you have a handful of other guys like Garrett Nussmeyer's. Obviously, his dad's a longtime NFL quarterback coach and former quarterback. He's looked really good at LSU. And there's some guys. We'll see how it plays out for them if they because there's always quarterbacks. But I just feel like you got some really good defensive players in this draft. We mentioned a couple of the guys from Georgia certainly, and your alma mater actually has 3.
The 2 guys up front and Will Johnson in the back. I mean, that, and that's, by the way, I'm staring and seeing how many more games they're going to be playing right now because, as you said, Michigan's going to struggle to get to 7-5 in their title defense season, which this technically still is until the playoff rankings come out. Travis Hunter, everyone's drooling over him too.
Got to be. I mean, you probably drool over him. He's a terrific receiver. He's a fantastic.
Do scouts think he'll play both ways?
I don't. I think it depends on who is the purchaser, who is the guy, who is the ownership, what does the leadership really think he can hold up? Because it's a question of, obviously there's less plays in an NFL game than in a college game, but there's way more physicality in an NFL game
for sure
than there is, and I think. We just don't see anybody do that in the NFL.
Nope, we do not.
So
we do not. Yeah, I mean, in terms of, playing both sides of the football, his current coach always referred to himself as a 5-down player, 3 on defense, 1 on special teams, 1 on offense, and that's why I think he will play both in the pros because Deion is molding him.
Dabble in it more than do what he's done at CU.
Which is what, like 120 snaps at the professional level, week in and week out. That would be a lot of cold tubs, man. That's a lot of cold tubs. Yeah. A lot of cold tubs. Thanks again. Have a safe journey to Columbus, Ohio. It's Nebraska and the Ohio State, correct?
That's correct.
On Big Noon on Fox.
Good luck to Matt Rule.
Okay.
You're in the deep end of the pool now. In the schedule now.
And fresh after Indiana putting 56 on them. 56, which is why Game Day's going to Bloomington this week. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern for free.